All right, so hello everybody. This is Corey Da Silva. I'm here with the amazing Spenser Deardorff, a
Hello.
gentleman. Hello, Spenser. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, so Spenser and I actually grew up together kind of in Northern California. He was in my
Yeah,
brother's grade.
I was in your little brother's class. You were a couple of years ahead of me, I think.
Yeah, about 4 years. So we didn't, well, I guess we did hang out because you'd come over to our house,
For,
for
yeah,
birth.
for your brother.
Yeah. And, but Tim is just great at picking friends. So I felt like I kind of got along with his friends better than my own friends, which might make me weird, but I don't know. You guys are just great guys. So
Well, I'll tell you what, the first time that we bonded, I think it was Tim's like 15th or 16th birthday party. We were over at your house, and they were watching Saw, and I wasn't into it. And so I came over into the next room, and you were playing Left 4 Dead 2 on the Xbox.
oh,
And so I
nice.
was just sitting there watching you. You know, you gave me the controller at one point, and you pointed out a witch, and you're like, "Yeah, shoot her. That's a good idea."
Oh yeah, the character that like kills you in 2 hits if you make her
Oh
mad.
yeah.
Wow, that sounds yeah. So we've bonded over scary zombie stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So, so thank you so much for doing this Zoom call. It's very impromptu. We were going to do it tomorrow, but I forgot I scheduled it during a screenwriting class. So I was like, Spenser, can we move it later? And you're like, let's just do it now. And I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
So thank you, man, for being
Well,
flexible.
and it was actually really great timing because I had just gotten back from the Black Lives Matter protest here in Reading, and was sitting down to eat because I hadn't had dinner yet, and I was like, "Oh, Corey wants to do the thing, so I'm just going to grab some yogurt real quick," and you might hear an occasional slurp, and that's what that is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so let's just get into it. So I wanted to talk specifically for my listeners. I want to talk specifically to some people that do not agree with me on everything. And I actually don't really know your views, Spenser, other than, well, I just won't say anything because I'll let you explain who you are. But I'm really excited to, yeah, just hear what you have to say. I pretty sure you're a Christian from what we've talked about, so I guess we have that in common. I'm sure we actually believe a lot of the same stuff, but I'm really
Yeah, most
curious.
likely.
Yeah. I'm really curious to just hear what your side of things. So can you just explain, like, who is Spenser? What do you do? Kind of, what are your core beliefs or whatever?
Well, so my political and religious journey has been kind of crazy. I grew up quite conservative. I would say, you bleed red, white, and blue type of household, and went to a Baptist church, and I actually still go to the same church that I grew up in. But my political inclinations have kind of just shifted and fluctuated over the last several years. I grew kind of less conservative, and then for several years I would describe myself as a conservative libertarian. And then I kind of adopted some more liberal and progressive views, and of course have been called a Nazi by some and a socialist by others because that's just how the internet works. And right now I don't necessarily know what label I would call myself. I kind of have this eclectic just gathering of all sorts of different political views, from conservative to libertarian to liberal.
Yeah. Sounds like, so have
I mean,
you,
the narcissistic way to put it is I'm an independent thinker, but
yes.
I,
So,
I, I just have found that in the American system, no political party agrees with me completely, or rather the other way around. I don't agree with any single political party completely. And so I try my best to vote without political party in mind.
how is that going in this age of severe,
People
you're,
don't like it.
yeah, because it's like you're either Team A or Team B, and we hate you if you're not on our team.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, back in 2016, I voted for Gary Johnson, who was the Libertarian candidate, mostly because personally it was for religious and political reasons, but I couldn't bring myself to vote for either of the two main candidates, Republican or Democrat. And so I voted for Gary Johnson, and people didn't like it back then. People say, oh, a vote for this person's actually a vote for that person or whatever is like, oh, if you vote third party, then you're wasting your vote. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I kind of feel that the American two-party system strangles people into voting against their conscience.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that.
I figured you'd agree with that.
I don't really
knowing
disagree.
what I know about you.
Yeah, I really don't disagree with anything you're saying. So, what's like maybe the one thing that you believe that is the most controversial, that you get like the most hate for? Just curious.
Let's see, I would probably say that it would have to be either the belief, it would probably be my more progressive beliefs, that I believe that we need either a universal basic income or debt forgiveness, like school debt forgiveness, or universal health care.
Do you feel like the most resistance comes from Christians, or maybe obviously conservatives probably, or what groups are?
I mean, it tends to, just because of how I grew up and where I go to church and the people I surround myself with actually do differ from me on that point. And so in that regard, I get a lot of pushback from conservatives. But then on the other side, there's, viewpoints that I have that upset the more liberal leaning side, is views on abortion and things of that nature. So
yeah, so you're pretty hard on abortion, as far as you don't personally agree with it, or?
Well, you see, that's a tricky thing for me, because I believe that abortion is morally wrong. However, I also believe that conservative policies surrounding abortion don't tend to work, in the sense that more liberal policies like providing contraceptives and providing free health care and stuff actually would decrease the number of abortions than just making it illegal.
So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about universal or the healthcare thing.
Yeah.
I hear this all the time. And I'm just coming at this, I want to know. So if you know, let me know.
Okay.
I hear all the time from people who support universal health care and that, kind of stuff. Well, look at the Nordic countries. Like, it works for them. Like, we should try that. But then the people that maybe I align myself more like, well, it wouldn't work because the United States is too big and you can't compare us to a tiny country. So is that argument valid, or is it stupid?
I would say that we honestly don't know, because it hasn't been tried in a country of this size. So I would say that the criticism is odd, because there's no evidence to back up that it wouldn't work just because we're so large. Obviously, there's issues of bureaucratic bloat and things like that. The Nordic countries are very interesting, mostly because we have to consider their culture is very different from our own. They do have strong libertarian values, valuing things like freedom of religion and freedom of the press and freedom of speech and such. But they also have, and they're also actually very capitalistic in many regards, really value private property and value private businesses and enterprises and corporations and such. However, the difference between them and us is that they are kind of like ancient Athens. In ancient Athens, it was considered patriotic to be proud to give taxes. And in ancient Athens, only like the richest 100 citizens would give taxes, and people would compete for that. It's like, I want to be one of the 100 that has to pay taxes for Athens. And so it's kind of like that. It's a patriotic pride to contribute to the society through taxation and such. And so there's that. And then they also have very strong welfare policies, healthcare and mental health, and taking care of homeless and such. So would there be issues transferring a system like that to America? Yes, I think so. And I don't think it could happen all at once. One of the disagreements I had with someone like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, for example, is that they wanted to jump right into a single payer system. And I don't think that's pragmatic. I think that because of where we are in America and American culture, is that if we are going to transfer to universal healthcare, it has to be a process that's going to take multiple election cycles until the culture gets used to that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So, I did not research for this talk at all. I did not prep, so I'm just throwing out things I've heard. So, because I'm just curious, I want to learn. So, yes, I want everyone, obviously, to be taken care of, and someone not having access to medical care is terrible. I've had friends personally who have suffered horribly at the hands of the medical establishment. So I'm not, rose-tinted goggles, one way or the other.
Right.
But okay, if we do transition to a system like this, how do we pay for it? How do we not maybe make taxes too crazy that will maybe hurt people? Like my wife and I don't know if we would get taxed or what it would be, but we're definitely not stable, so
right.
More taxes would really hurt us. So how would we do this?
Well, proponents of... Now, on the financial side of this, I will admit that I'm a little bit sticky. I don't tend to understand the financial side of things as well as I do just kind of the policy side. As from what I understand, having looked at like what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have put forward and various other Democratic candidates, is that in the long run, a single payer system would be cheaper because you would pay less in an increase in taxes than you would otherwise pay every month paying for medical insurance. Now, one could say whether that's true or not. I would argue that in the long run, it would probably save the overall system money. And here's why. Because citizens would be more willing to go to the doctor when they're not feeling well immediately, as opposed to knowing that they can't afford it, and so then they put it off and they say, I can't go to the doctor, so I'll just that it gets better. I won't say who this is, but I know someone who's very close to me who actually broke his wrist and would not go to the hospital because he couldn't afford it. He's like, I'll just let it heal on its own, which is crazy to me. And admittedly, it's a purely emotional argument right there. But I just think about when we scale that up to the size of our nation, how many people perhaps have early stage cancer and they're not feeling well. They don't go to the doctor because they can't afford it. And then they end up having the cancer progress through their system and they don't go to the doctor until it's too late. So
yeah,
it's those types of situations where you have extensive medical procedures needed. Those are the most expensive things. And so if we can prevent a lot of those by having periodic checkups that people don't have to worry about, then I think in the long run it will save money.
Yeah, interesting. Apologies, everyone. The connection's a little wonky, but it'll work. It's just a little wonky, but... So...
Well, I will say this. I know another criticism that I've often heard is the idea of healthcare being a right, in that you don't have the right to another person's service, which is a valid concern. However, I would say that there's a couple issues with that. Number one being that nobody forces people to go into the medical profession, right? To me, it would be the same thing as like we have the rights to soldiers and police presence and fire departments and things like that government pays for, but we don't consider that to be having a right to their service because they freely go into those fields. I would say it's the same thing as would be applied to the medical profession. And on top of that, constitutionally, I would argue that we actually do have instances in which we have the right to the service of other people. Most notably is the right to a trial by jury, right? Where constitutionally we are guaranteed the service of several of our fellow citizens should we go to trial. Interesting.
So I like what you said. You're saying, okay, yeah, like we got the police, firewomen, politically
right.
correct here.
Firepersons,
yes. So we have all these services. You're just saying, is it possible to expand it to the medical community? And if it is possible, we should try it. And I think that's a totally fair question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see no problem with that. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, we got a lot to cover, so I kind of want to see what else we can find.
Yeah.
So you just said you came from a Black Lives Matter protest, correct?
Yes.
How was that? From
what I understand, they're still going on. I left because I had a feeling that things were about to get just a little bit messier than I was comfortable with. I know that the police, of course, the police chief of Reading has been very vocal that he supports the right for free protest, and that he supports the protest against specifically the murder of George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely appreciate that. And I know that there's various emotions on all sides, and I'm sure that the police have very much high anxiety during these situations because they don't want things to go south. And there was actually a single incident while I was there that kind of freaked people out and made people run, where pickup truck screeched by and then threw into reverse, and then the guy got out and protesters started rushing at him, and other protesters were like, no, and they started chanting love, love, and don't take the bait. Like I said, it's just a heightened emotional situation. Overall, very peaceful. That was in the 2.5 hours I was there, that was the only issue. There was quite some concern because they're being called either counter-protesters or kind of a self-appointed militia. A bunch of people in like tactical gear and stuff have kind of surrounded and have been watching, claiming to want to protect the city from any rioting and looting and stuff, which is a valid concern, though I know their presence caused a lot of people to get very nervous.
Yeah, I'm sure. I see a bunch of guys in full gear. And did they have weapons also, or?
Before I went to the protest, I'd seen various Facebook posts asking people to bring like AR-15s and shotguns and stuff like that, which was concerning. However, I didn't see any open carry from them. Not to say that they weren't, it was just concealed.
Yeah. Wow. All right. That was in Reading.
Yeah.
Was it in downtown Reading?
Yeah, well, there's actually two going on. There is one in front of the courthouse and one in front of City Hall.
Oh, wow. And which one were you at?
I was at the courthouse.
Wow. Crazy. How many people were there?
It was my first time going to a political protest ever. So
yeah,
it was a new experience for me. At the courthouse location, I would say probably at least 500 people, if not more.
Wow. That's huge for Reading. If people don't know Reading, that's huge.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Less in front of City Hall, about 100 or 150 or so.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, so what do we do? Like, I was kind of in this mindset that we had conquered racism, we had conquered, the ghosts of our past, and we were moving forward, and we were, okay, let's just put this behind us, let's forgive, move on, and now it just feels like a bomb fell on it. So where do you think we are as a nation right now, and what do we do?
It's difficult to say. Honestly, I would say that I was, for a long time, very much in a similar mindset to what you're describing. And as a white guy, growing up in Reading, I can't say that I've experienced, I can't say that I would ever really experience that. But over the last several months, I have been, I guess, more willing to listen, listen to the stories that my Black and Hispanic friends were sharing with me, friends who are Asian, friends who come from all different ethnicities, about things that they've experienced, and really realizing for myself that just because I haven't personally experienced something doesn't mean it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of people, I think this has been just boiling under the surface, waiting to go. And then we're coming out of a pandemic, so people are all just raring to get fired up over everything.
Yeah.
I can't really give you definitive answers about where our nation needs to go. I have some ideas. I know that Representative Justin Amash, who's the only libertarian in Congress, just announced he's putting forward some legislation ending what's called, if I'm correct, qualified immunity, which basically means that it will open up police officers to be sued for civil rights violations, which is something that used to be able to happen back in the 60s, but has since been whittled down by the Supreme Court, that police officers are granted certain immunity in their job. So basically, it kind of, in my view, decreases accountability in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying with this being added, that would make cops more accountable.
Right,
That's what you're saying.
because they would be more careful. Another proposition that I had said, or I had seen that might work, is that any financial compensation that the police have to pay for their mess ups comes out of their pension fund as opposed to taxpayer funds.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. So there's definitely, for both of those things, pros and cons on both sides. Regardless, we need to find a situation that doesn't place unnecessary burden on a police officer while they're doing their job. At the same time, make them constantly more aware of what actions they are taking.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say I know police officers, and they're...
Oh, absolutely.
The police officers I know are great men and women. I have a lot of respect for them. I have encountered terrible police officers who treated me like total garbage, and whatever, that's fine, I guess. They didn't hurt me, they were just rude. But wow, I can hear the people say, wow, a cop was rude to you, you're such a baby. Yes, I am a baby. I have lived a great spoiled life, and I am totally, yes, I am a spoiled brat. I've had a great, easy life. So I just want to say to all the police officers I know, this isn't me, dissing on you guys and all that.
Absolutely. I would add to that is, I have respect for our police, and I know many men and women who are fantastic officers. And at the same time, I will say I've loved seeing police officers be very vocal about this George Floyd case, saying, that's not what we're trained for, is a good police officer would never do something like that. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so I guess, just briefly, George Floyd, we'll talk a little bit about that. Kind of my reaction to seeing that was, obviously there's the racial dynamic that can't be ignored. It's there. What got me fired up, though, kind of what you're talking about, the accountability, what got me fired up, because I'm like, if I see anything that threatens my liberty or my safety, or maybe the kids I'm going to have, that gets me riled up. What I felt like is, wow, this is straight out of 1984. Cops can just kill us, kill any of us, whites, blacks, anyone.
Yeah.
And so my thought was really?
Have it filmed, right?
Yeah, and so I was okay, so then do I have to carry a cell phone around the rest of my life in case a corrupt official decides to murder me? And so obviously my heart breaks for the black community. I have black friends, and my heart goes out to all of you. I have no idea what you guys have gone through. I don't have any idea, and it's terrible. But I also feel like that is the thing. But I'm also seeing this. We all need to come together, all Americans, because this can never happen again to any Americans. Because if we don't stand up, then we're heading towards, because what happens if the government or whatever gets super corrupt, very corrupt, and then it's a police state?
So, yeah, looking at it from a government power perspective, you have 3 very high-profile cases lately that have been very concerning. Number one, you have the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, right?
Yeah.
What I would describe as vigilante justice, right? And so that's opening up conversations about the legality of citizen arrest and things like that. Is at what point are you able to use quote unquote violent force against another human being because you think a crime happened? Then you have the case, and this goes back to the police, of Breonna Taylor, who was killed in a unannounced, I forget exactly what it was, but the police came into the apartment, and her boyfriend thought that that there was an intruder, and so he fired at the police, and then the police returned fire and killed her. And then everybody now knows about the situation with George Floyd, which is absolutely tragic. And yeah, it rings of authoritarianism. And the sad thing is honestly, I think a lot of this could have been avoided. People who know me know that I'm a vocal critic of President Trump. I'm not a huge fan, and I don't agree with his response to all this. He's being a very hard-nosed, very law and order type president, right now when I think a lot of people are looking for healing, looking for division. I think a lot of these nationwide protests would not have happened had all 4 officers been arrested after the incident happened.
Yeah.
Even if just the single officer had been arrested immediately afterwards, because, and it's because of that qualified immunity I was talking about, that if any one of us had done the same thing to George Floyd, kneel on his neck, then we would have been sitting in a cell that afternoon, right? We wouldn't have been just let go and fired from our job. We would be in a prison cell. And here we are 8 days later, and the other 3 officers still have not been arrested or charged with anything.
Yeah, that's bad.
Which a lot of people are understandably upset about.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, we could arrest them, but they still need to go on trial. So, I mean,
right.
At the very least, it could have been an olive branch, to some people that were understandably very frustrated.
Yeah. Because we have to remember the timeline here, and it's been 8 days, and that 8 days has felt like an entire month for a lot of us. But the LA protests were the second city to protest after Minneapolis. And those LA protests didn't start until about 3 days after the killing of George Floyd. It wasn't until George Floyd was killed on Memorial Day, which was a Monday, and I don't think the LA protests really kind of kicked into high gear until Thursday. So honestly, is you would have still had protests in Minneapolis, but had even within a day or two the officers been arrested, you probably would have avoided nationwide protests.
Yeah, wow. Interesting. Wow. Okay, so we're running out of time, but I feel like we're just agreeing on everything. And I'm like, okay, I want to get to something that we don't agree on. So, I guess I don't know. Do we do Trump, or is it like the cliche thing? Should we do something else?
I mean, we can do the cliche thing. Have you talked about Trump on your podcast yet?
No, I've tried to avoid politics. I hate talking politics, but I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like I have to do something.
I mean, if you're looking for something to disagree on, then, straight from the horse's mouth, as they say.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Do I want to do this? Ugh. Do I even want to do this?
I see the fear in your eyes.
It's not even fear.
We're all just tired. I know.
I will just say I voted for Trump, and I only voted for him because I did not like Hillary Clinton at all. And I understand people felt the same way about Trump, and they, obviously either voted Hillary or, third party like you did. So totally everyone, vote for who you want. I just, for whatever reason, was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with Trump. I did. And it's interesting because from my perspective, and I don't know if this is because of the media or maybe I'm just wrong and I don't see it, but from my perspective, it seems like, obviously Trump's not perfect. He is a total jerk, which I'm kind of okay with him being a total jerk, because I'm like, well, he needs to talk to people like Kim Jong-un and Jinping, I don't know if I said his name right, from China, and Putin.
Yeah,
so I'm like, so I kind of want like a maverick. I obviously not too maverick because we don't want to start nuclear war, but I'm like, I kind of want a cutthroat businessman who is murderous in his dealings to hopefully help us out. And I see obviously all this stuff about him being racist and all this stuff. But from my perspective, it's like, it feels like a smear tactic. And if he is sincerely all these things, I want to know. So I don't know, from your perspective, is he actually all these terrible things, or is it the media? I just want to know. Because some people really hate this guy. Like, really hate this guy.
Yeah.
So am I just brainwashed? Am I stupid? Please tell me.
Way back in 2016, when I voted for Gary Johnson, I just was voting my conscience. Honestly, back then, I did not hate Trump, and I wouldn't even say I disliked Trump. Nowadays, it's not Christian to hate someone. However, I do dislike. I have grown to dislike him more every year, personally. And honestly, it's because of the change. It's not even because of him. It's because of the change I've seen in the church, right? In attitudes of fellow Christians who I remember. I mean, you and I were both in high school during the Obama years, and I remember the things that our friends and family and parents and such said, not to throw anybody under the bus, but complaints that were said about Obama, some which were unfounded and some which probably were true. And then Trump got elected, and I watched the same people letting stuff that Obama did go because Trump was doing it. And I just kind of started seeing this, I would call hypocrisy from the church, mostly because there was a lot of justification. It's like, oh, he's a bad guy, but we'll forget about that because we got to get a Supreme Court justice, or we got to outlaw abortion or whatever. And for me, it became this idea of, well, how much stuff do we let slide for an inch of political power? If that makes sense as an argument.
No, I hear you.
So in answer to the actual question you asked, no, I don't think he's a lot of those things. I don't think he's more racist than most people. I think there is an aspect of racism to him, but there is to a lot of us, whether we know it or not. What I think it is that he is a very good politician. He knows exactly what to say to get people to be riled up and to agree with him. He is a good negotiator, like he said. The issue with that is I have a feeling, and I couldn't point you to any solid example right now. I just have a feeling that specifically with the church and with other conservative causes, he's manipulating people into doing what he wants. And so there's a good chance in my mind that he doesn't believe even a lot of stuff that he says. Mm-hmm. He just says it because he knows in the end it'll get him what he wants.
I mean, I agree with you there 100%. Yeah.
But honestly, it has pushed me further left than I ever thought I would be. Is the election of 2016, the Trump presidency. 5 years ago, I would have not considered myself to ever vote for a Democrat. And honestly, as much as I don't really care for Joe Biden, I will probably vote for him in November. And the vote will be purely an anti-Trump vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so devil's advocate here. Christian playing devil's advocate. Well, whatever. Because the obvious answer is, well, Joe Biden is obviously, for you, it sounds like he's obviously less awful than Trump. But I guess I'm wondering, I feel like, except for a few people in Congress, like probably Justin Amash, and I do like Paul Rand.
And he didn't run for the Libertarian nomination. I was so upset about that.
Oh, dang it. Yeah, I do like Paul Rand, or Rand Paul, gosh, I can't even say his name right. So there's a few people that I feel like are pretty cool, but I kind of feel like everyone is kind of, not everyone, but kind of that everyone's just kind of tainted and weird and not very trustworthy. And so I guess I'm wondering, I'm losing my question as I'm talking. I guess I'm wondering, do you think personally we'll ever see someone that we can think, oh, this is actually a good person? Or are they all going to be bad and we just forever till the end of time pick the worst of two evils?
Honestly, you kind of got into it a little bit there at the end, the worst of two evils. I think that the American political system will always suffer until people are willing to vote third party and fourth party candidates. Personally, I think that a better political system is what we see in Europe with the parliamentary system, where you have dozens of political parties that have to form coalitions with each other each election cycle. It allows people to find political parties that align with their beliefs so much more. And as such, then you don't have to vote for the lesser of two evils. And then it just becomes the lesser of six evils or whatever. But I think that more choices is always better. I mean, that's a kind of a capitalistic thought, right? Is we say that competition breeds innovation. And so you always want more companies jumping in with the product to innovate and to push other companies so that they don't stagnate. It's the same thing with politics, is if you have multiple political parties, I think it would only benefit us. I think the most obvious candidates are, of course, the Libertarian Party and the Green Party to be a strong third and fourth party that would kind of break up the dichotomy that we currently have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see that for sure.
And the issue is that me here. Actually, you asked me way earlier probably what my most controversial position is, and I think this is it.
All right, give me the juice.
I have, ever since 2016, become very anti-patriotic to the point where it is something I have to be aware of in myself, but to the point where it almost makes me sick to hear people say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing patriotic songs and things like that. And again, I don't know, it might be because of the Trump presidency and what it's done to the church, but I've become super concerned, or at least noticed it more, that a lot of people treat patriotism as an idol.
Yeah.
And I ask myself the question is like, hey, I wonder, would people fight as hard for their faith as they do for their right to be patriotic?
Yeah.
And that's probably the position that's gotten me in the most hot water with people.
So do you feel like America has ever been great? Or are you one of those people that's like, you know what? We were founded on a lot of stuff. I don't know about this.
I think specific aspects of America have been great at different times. To say America is the greatest nation on earth, I think, is a purely subjective statement, and one that I don't think any of us could answer honestly, because we all grew up here, and so, like you said, rose-colored glasses. I do agree with a good portion of what the Founding Fathers put forward. Something that we have to wrestle with is the idea that these men all advocated for equality and freedom, and yet in the government they created slaves, and women did not have equal footing in the political process. And so there's kind of a tension there that we have to wrestle with. And then moving forward to the Civil War, we have to wrestle with the tension that half of the country was willing to die for the right to own another human being. So there has always been terrible evils in our country, and I think there's always been really great things as well. And it would be dishonest to focus on one more than the other. I do agree with the statement that there's probably never been another country like America, which is why we probably suffer with some of the problems we do. There's never been a country as ethnically diverse as America has been, for better or worse. We talked about the Nordic countries earlier, and one of the things they have going for them is that they're like 95, 97% Scandinavian. In America, we have white and black and Mexican and Hispanic and Cuban and Japanese, Chinese, all sorts of different ethnicities and cultures that are all struggling to coexist with each other, and at times assimilate with each other, and people enjoy interacting with other cultures or don't interact with other cultures, whatever that may be. So it creates a lot of problems that have never really been seen before. Probably since, the ancient world. You look at like the Roman Empire or the Greek Empire, and they had a whole bunch of cultures, but their answer was a lot less democratic than ours, of course.
Yeah. Interesting.
Has America ever been great? Parts of it have always been great, and parts of it are still great today. I don't agree with the idea of let's make America great again, because I don't think we can go back to how things used to be, and I don't think we should want to. I think that we should take what we have and desire to make it better.
Okay, so it's like just keep getting better.
Right.
Yeah.
The term progressive is a hot button word for a lot of people, but I do think that progression forward is a positive thing. We can disagree about how that needs to be done, but we should always strive to make things better.
Yeah. Well, great. I know you got to go. I got to hang out with my wife. She was out of town, so I haven't seen her, but I really enjoyed this.
Sorry, we didn't find a lot of stuff to disagree on.
I'm like, I kind of want to talk to you some more, because I feel like you make a lot of sense, and I like that. Yeah, I just like that you deal in tensions, which I think is important. And
I'll tell you what, I do get in trouble on the internet because I play devil's advocate a lot, and so sometimes I will say things because I like to approach things from all sides of the problem, and though that logical working will get misinterpreted as what my actual view is, and I'm like, no, I'm just processing through this with you.
Yeah, and to be fair, I do troll people sometimes. It's terrible. I'm a terrible person. Yes, just to see how will they react if I push their buttons here. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
sometimes I get like that too, if I have to be honest.
Yeah.
But let's do this again sometime then.
Yeah, this was great. You have a lot of great thoughts, and I have some stuff to think about. But looks like we agree on pretty much everything. All right.
Oh, I doubt that.
Oh, okay. So follow-up. We'll do a follow-up then.
We'll text back and forth. We'll find some things we disagree on.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, man.
All
well,
right, appreciate you, Corey.
Yeah, thanks so much for meeting, and stay safe and take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. Well, that concludes my interview with, I almost called him Steven. I am amazed that we only had like 30 or 40 minutes to talk, and I was having so much fun listening to him that I didn't really have time to talk about maybe some more specific stuff. Yeah, so pretty cool. We actually agreed on most stuff, and even if I didn't necessarily agree with him, I could see where he was coming from, and I'm like, actually that kind of makes sense. I think definitely the part we disagreed on the most, I don't even know. Like, I'm not even going to say it. Whatever. I'm not even getting to it. Doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. Yeah, no, this was really fun. I hope that I get to talk to more people that disagree with me, or I maybe think would disagree with me, and just kind of hear where they're coming from, because it's interesting to hear other people's perspectives. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Yeah, anyway, I hope this was interesting to you all. If you are listening to this and you disagree with me a lot on stuff, hit me up. Shoot me a message on Facebook, and maybe we can set something up. I obviously can't meet with everyone because of time and constraints, but if you have a position or a perspective that you want to talk about, that you want to hash out with someone, then I would love to hear from you. Anyway, I will see you all later, and I will talk to you later. Take care, and I will see you next time. Thank you.